Ladies and gentlemen, this is your favorite gun channel in a beautiful, bright English language, and today I have a beautiful revolver for you today from the end of the 19th century. This is the Smith Wesson Model 3 Russian contract model. I'm pretty sure that everybody loves this robust but beautiful military revolver. These large military revolvers like the Russian were the first to fire metallic cartridges and the last to shoot black powder. By the end of the century, they were all replaced by small caliber revolvers and semi-auto pistols. The Russian model is in fact a legend, and we have a beautiful repro made by Uberti that we can try at the range while we can learn the history of this gun. But before we continue, please subscribe to the channel, and also, if you wish and you can support us through Patreon. You can also support us by buying our products, or authentic Civil War cartridge boxes and percussion revolver cartridge formers, or US Arsenal Stadia rangefinders, or rubber printing plates for Arsenal cartridge bundles, or our new 18th century volumetric powder measures, or our authentic hand-forged flintlock multi-tools, or our Civil War powder measure sets. They all help to keep the quality of our channel high. Without you, this would be much more difficult. So thank you very much again. If you want to find more information about our products, please visit capandball.com. That's our website. The story of the Smith & Wesson company is quite interesting. Horace Smith and Daniel Wesson teamed up first in the early 1850s to manufacture a lever-action arm. It was the volcanic repeater. It was an excellent design. It was firing a caseless, self-contained cartridge, and it was operated with a lever, just like in the case of the later lever-action rifles. Now, this model was supposed to fight the dominancy of Colt, so it was actually a short arm and a long arm system. But they just lacked the funds to make it successful, so they were forced to sell the concept to Benjamin Tyler Henry, who made it a success with the Henry rifle, and that was the beginning of the long story of the Winchester and the lever-action arms. Now, they did not give up, so in 1856 in Springfield, Massachusetts, they made a new factory, and that factory was aimed to produce a unique breech-loading revolver design. Now, this company was in a very favorable position in the 1860s, as they were owning a patent from Rollin White from 1855 for the bore-through cylinder. White's revolver was a strange piece indeed. It combined a bore-through cylinder that was loaded from the breech with a magazine that was actually feeding the cartridges. Was quite an overcomplicated design indeed. So actually they were the only one to be able to produce breech-loading revolvers. And this patent was a good protection up until 1871, so that's a long term. And they had excellent designs for breech-loading revolvers that also saw action in the Civil War, but in civilian arms, so they were not officially accepted for military service. Their Model 1 and Model 2 revolvers were excellent hits on the civilian market. The Smith & Wesson Model 1 revolver was a game-changer indeed. It was not only a breech-loading revolver, but it also fired a self-contained rimfire cartridge. This was clearly the future of revolver designs. But let's not think that this was the birth of the breech-loading revolver, as in Europe, Casimir Lefauché, with the pinfire system, it appeared a bit earlier. So from the 1840s, he was submitting patents for breech-loading revolver designs. And for the pinfire revolver, you actually need a bore-through cylinder. By the way, the Rollin White patent was describing a complete revolver design. That was a complete failure. It never worked. The only part of this patent that was valuable was the bore-through cylinder. So up until the end of this protection, all the other manufacturers had to go around this Rollin White patent and find creative ideas how to load a metallic cartridge into a revolver from the direction of the chamber mouth. And this was a time when the lip fire and teeth fire revolvers appeared, that they were just dead ends of the firearms development. So Smith & Wesson was in a good position. But the time was running out. Their first large frame revolver that made the army trials and was successful at the army trials was designed in 1869, and that was the Model 3 American revolver. Now, this revolver was an excellent revolver. It remained in production for 4 decades. It fired first the 44 caliber Henry rimfire cartridge, but later it was redesigned to fire the center fire version of this cartridge, technically with the same specifications, same powder load and same bullet. So this Model 3 revolver was nicknamed the American, and it fired the 44 Smith & Wesson American cartridge. Now, this revolver was submitted for army trials in 1870, and the Board of Ordnance accepted this for service. So this was actually the very first breech-loading metallic cartridge firing revolver of the US Army, and they immediately ordered 1,000 pieces. So Smith & Wesson had to be very fast, as the 1871 date was coming very quickly. And all the other manufacturers like Colt, they were working on their metallic cartridge firing designs as well. So the competition became very strong. So this was the last chance to seize the Navy and the Army contracts. So the Model 3 was not just the first metallic cartridge military revolver, but it was a great hit on the civilian market as well. Wild West heroes like Buffalo Bill Cody, Annie Oakley, Virgil Earp, Jesse James, they all used it. And also Theodore Roosevelt had one, and they admired this revolver. The most important product benefit of the Smith & Wesson Model 3 revolver was the fast reloading and fast ejection system. By opening the latch, you can completely open the frame of the revolver. This is why you call it a top break revolver. And you have beautiful clean access to all the 6 chambers, making reloading very fast, much faster than in the case of the quote single action army revolvers. And this goes the same for the ejection system. So after you fire your 6 shots, you open the latch, and when you are opening the system, the star-shaped ejector lifts the cartridge cases, the empty cartridge cases, and makes ejection very fast. Simultaneously, you can eject all the 6 cartridges. If you do this fast enough, it will just throw all the cartridges out of the system, making it easy and completely clean for reloading. So this is a great benefit. This is the first charge: 15 grains of 3F Swiss powder, 24 grains of corn wet as filler, and a 240 grain bullet cast from a hardened lead alloy. The 15 grain group was not bad, but I wanted more, so I kept on experimenting with various loads. The final was 24 grains of 3F Swiss powder, 11 grains of filler, and the same 240 grain lime and bullet cast from hardened alloy. The result was satisfying. 4 shots in the size of the 10 ring and only 1 flyer, but that was the shooter, not the revolver indeed. So the revolver became a hit on the domestic market, and this was a time in 1870 when General Alexander Gorlov, the military attaché in Washington of the Russian Imperial Army, approached Smith & Wesson whether it is possible to buy this revolver for the Russian army as well. Smith & Wesson was open for the business, but Gorlov asked for some minor modifications. Well, not so minor modifications, because he had a huge problem with the cartridge. The problem was that the .44 American cartridge was firing a heeled bullet. This meant that the largest caliber of the bullet was the same size as the largest diameter of the cartridge case, so it was completely straight. The bullet had a heel at the bottom, which means it had a smaller diameter part that was actually hidden in the mouse, and this is where the case mouse was creamed on. But the grease grooves, they were exposed, and the lubrication was exposed, which means that it collected the dirt from the pocket, from the cartridge box, which is not really convenient, as this dirt will wear out the bore. So this had to be changed for the Russians. So Smith & Wesson redesigned the cartridge. First of all, they kept the same cartridge case diameter. It was a straight wall cartridge, by the way, but they used a smaller caliber bullet. They went down to 429. This is the same caliber as the 44-40 caliber bullet, and they increased the weight of the bullet to 247 grains, which means that the same powder load as in the case of the American, we had a bit larger chamber pressure, of course, but a better performing cartridge as well. So this was not a bad change. They completely abandoned the heel bullet concept and they went back to the normal grease groove bullet with a flat base. And now the grease grooves, they were hidden inside the case mouth, which means that the lubrication was not exposed anymore. So it met the Russian demand. The cartridge case was charged with 23 grains of black powder, and this was the birth of the 44 Smith Wesson Russian cartridge. So the Model 3 revolver was a hit on the domestic market and on the export market as well. The Russian army purchased up until 1886, the end of the contracts, 131,000 pieces. But it remained in production up until 1895, the acceptance of the Nagant revolvers. It was manufactured in the Tula arsenal. But there were several other European countries that also manufactured the revolver on license, like in Belgium, like in Spain, like in Germany. So this revolver actually remained a service arm up until the 1920s. The Russian army asked for some other minor modifications as well. They asked for the addition of a lanyard ring at the bottom of the grip, but they also requested the redesign of the shape of the grip. They added a small stud here that makes it much more comfortable to hold. It just prevents the revolver from turning up while you're firing it, but it also makes it a bit harder for your thumb to reach the hammer. So probably what you win on the accuracy, you lose it on the rate of fire. The revolver also has a little sprue here at the bottom of the trigger guard for your middle finger that will also support the revolver, so it is a very comfortable feel. It has excellent sights. I really have to say that it has much better sights than on the later Schofield revolvers.
The rear sight seems like two tall pins, while the front sight is a rounded German silver blade that is clearly visible even in low light conditions. Precise positioning this blade in the notch of the rear sight is easy and comfortable. Seems to me ideal for target shooting.
The catch mechanism is also a bit different than in the case of the Model 3 revolvers. So top brick revolver is a bit weaker than the solid frame revolver, of course, but let's not be afraid because it has a double locking mechanism. So first of all, we have a catch here. This catch grabs on the frame and connects the barrel and the frame together strongly. But if you look closely, you can see that there is also a lug on the end of the catch and there's a recess on the hammer, which means that when you're firing the gun, this recess is interlocking on this lug, which means that the hammer itself in the rest position, in the fired position, is preventing the catch from being able to move upwards. So it is double locking the system. The surface of the revolver is blued, the barrel is 8 inches long, and the inscriptions are in Cyrillic. And this is also true for the Uberti revolver. Now these are the small details I like very much. The Uberti reproduction is the only on the market. It's a fine arm, it's a very well made arm, it is handling well and it is accurate too. My revolver is not chambered for the original Russian cartridge, but for the 45 long coat cartridge. For me it is much easier to tool up for this cartridge because all the components are accessible in my country, but this is not true for the 44 Russian. Well, not 100% not true, but it is much harder. But anyway, the charge of this cartridge is very close to the original, meaning that, I have 24 grains of black powder in it and the 240 grain bullet cast from 1 to 30 tin lead alloy.
My bullets are cast from 1 to 30 tin lead alloy and deep looped in the molten mix of beeswax, tallow and synthetic engine oil. Before using them, I weigh them, then I size them all to 0.452 inches in diameter. Then I flare the mouth of the case so it can accept the base of the bullet. Now comes the standard large pistol primer. The powder charge is 24 grains of 3F Swiss powder. must not be an air gap between bullet and powder charge, so I use 11 grains of semolina as filler. And finally comes the seating of the bullet with a medium strength scrimp.
The length of the cartridge is set by the cylinder itself, so it must be the longest that your cylinder can accept to make the revolver accurate. Just measure your cartridge on the side of the cylinder and have the cartridge length below that, let's say with 1/10 of a millimeter. These top brick revolvers are not considered the strongest on earth, so of course a solid frame revolver has a much stronger mechanism than a top brick revolver. So if you're reloading your cartridges with smokeless powder, then be careful, very careful with the chamber pressures.
There is nothing like ringing gongs with an old revolver and old cartridges, so let's try hitting something at 50 meters first.
Jó. 50 meters. That's good. 4 out of 5. The bore of the Uberti repro is button rifled. We have 6 right-hand grooves. The twist rate is 1 turn in 16 inches, perfect for conical bullets. The bore diameter is 0.442 inches, while the groove diameter is 0.450451 as I slag the bore. So it is of course perfectly matching the long call specifications. The cooperation between Daniel Wesson and Horace Smith ended in 1874 when Smith retired and sold his shares to his partner. But together they made quite a large impact on the firearms development. So the Smith Wesson Model 3 revolver has its share from the Old West, Wild West stories, but also from European history as well, or world history as well, or military history as well, as this revolver was intensively used in the First World War. Now, I cannot give you any kind of rational reason why, but being a rifle guy, I still want to own this. This is so romantic and so robust.
That's the last challenge for today, ladies and gentlemen. Revolvers are designed for short ranges, but sometimes they can be surprisingly accurate on rifle distances as well. Let's check Mr. Russian.
It's dead. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed this little time travel again. If you like what I do, then please subscribe, like, share, comment. This will help to grow the channel. If you wish to support us, you can do it through Patreon or by buying our products. All the links are below in the description of the video. Until next time, stay cool and keep your powder dry.